All right, welcome everyone to What They Don't Teach You in Film School, Cinematography Edition. Joining me today is six-time ASC President Richard Crudo, cinematographer Veronica Bouza. You guys are in different order than I have you written down. AFI graduate and cinematographer of The Gutter, which is at South by Southwest, right? And Christine Eng, NYU graduate and cinematographer of Poker Face. You might have heard of it. So welcome, guys. So the idea of this panel is to talk a little bit about the soft skills and the things that you didn't realize you needed to know in order to be a successful DP. Now, you guys are all at different stages in your careers. That's one of the reasons it's great to have your perspectives here. So, you know, some of those skills include leadership, communication, networking, and that's what we're going to touch on. So let's start it with an open question. I'm going to start with you, Christine. And what would you say is the most valuable skill you've had to develop that you didn't know about when you first became a DP?
The thing I really value is my community. And, you know, they do kind of say it in film school, like the people around you, this is your team, this is your family. But I think in film school, you feel like it's so much competition. And I think for me coming out of film school, I realized that so many of my friends who are actually here today, you know, how can we support each other? And I think it's fostering community, supporting each other and helping each other in multiple ways, like technical, emotional, you know, just physically being there. So community, I think, is something that we don't really spend enough time talking about.
I think that's a really universal answer because I feel like that's something that's needed universally, not just when you're filming, but just in your normal life. So I love that answer. Veronica.
I mean, kind of piggyback off that, I would
Closer here.
What? Can you hear me now? All right. So I would say the biggest thing going from film school to working more in the industry, working with people who really focus on that position. Because I feel like when you're in film school, a lot of times you are doing multiple positions and then you start to meet people that really focus on being a focus puller or being a gaffer. And I really think that kind of pushes you as a DP and as a leader.
That's a great answer. And Richard, so, you know, what is one skill that you didn't have when you first started?
One skill?
We'll start with one. We'll move on to others.
Well, we're in many ways, we're in the people business, you know, managing people, time, resources. I think that that's probably the biggest challenge. Leadership. Lighting is only a part of it, and leadership is more, has more of an effect on what we do than almost anything else, because you're manipulating people and elements, time, money, to serve what goes through the lens and hits the emulsion or the sensor. So I think qualities of leadership, how to handle your crew, how to handle people up the chain of command, the people that are running the show, essentially producers, your directors, and right down to the craft service and the PAs. There's a way you present yourself and a way that you manage things and the way that you treat people that can make the experience so much easier for yourself and so much enjoyable for everyone else as well.
I love that answer. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. Could you talk a little bit about how you've changed as a leader from earlier in your career to later in your career?
I think early in my career, I was a blunt instrument in many ways. I have mellowed to a great extent. I think I'm still at the core very strong and very tough, but it's tempered with a better understanding of human nature. And there's no way to learn that in school, really. I think that's something you just have to get out in the world, whatever you do, whatever occupation you might do. That's something you have to learn just by the process of life. And I think the quicker way to do it is just become aware of it. Because most people just are not even aware of that. They're sort of just sleeping through things. And as soon as you open yourself up to the possibility of that, then the whole thing becomes so much easier.
Amazing. All right. So one of the things that I think a lot of young DPs fall into, and I know that I was certainly guilty of this, is this idea that if I can do this thing, then I will have made it. Or if I can just get to this level, then I'm good, right? And I want to discuss that a little bit. You know, like all I need is to do one large budget film, or I get my first feature, and then that's it. The phones are going to flood. I'm going to be just shooting features left and right. You know, and have you found this to be true in your career? And have you ever stopped kind of climbing that ladder?
Absolutely not. I would say this industry humbles you, and you never know when a project is going to come out. So I think a better thing is just to kind of keep working, kind of keep building your resume, because you never know what connection or what relationship will kind of lead to the next project.
Richard, do you have a...
Yeah, the process never ends. I don't think you ever stop learning. There's no end to this, and that's what makes it fascinating and keeps us coming back for more, especially today, because it seems like every time out you're reinventing the wheel in many ways. It's not like during the film era where so many things were pretty much set in stone and you had only so many choices. Now it's a much broader spectrum, and that's what is fascinating and invigorating about the whole thing. So there's never any time where you feel, oh, I can lay back because I've done this or I've achieved that and now I've made it. And you never really make it, you know? You always have to be making it, I think.
Christine?
Well, I would say throw that ladder out the window. I would say don't. I mean, you know, goals are tricky because goals are cool when you achieve them. And then when you achieve them, you're like, what's next? Right? Or if you don't achieve them and then you're like, I'm a failure. So why set goals? Forget the goals. Just like take every day, you know, and then take an opportunity as the opportunity is. Be a genuine person. Be yourself and like be true to the project, to the people around you. And that's the thing that will always, you know, bring you joy. You know, you can't control everything. So if you think you're going to do this big budget movie that's going to lead to other big budget movies, sure. But is that big budget movie even good? Do you even like it? Or do you feel like you just have to do it because it's a number and it's a status symbol? But like, you should just do the things that make you happy and work with the people you love. That's like the true testament for me of success.
Amazing question. Amazing answer. I feel like I'm repeating myself because you guys are making such good answers that all I can say is great. But talking about that, you know, if you're not setting goals, how are you growing? How are you growing as a DP?
Well, for me, I feel really lucky. I feel like I work in many genres. You know, I did do Poker Face. I love that job so much. We're about to shoot a season 2. But literally, I read Poker Face. I'm like, okay, great, let's do a documentary. I just, you know, no crew, just me and the director. You know, like, I think it's important to, like, continuously challenge yourself creatively, physically, mentally, you know, and just, like, give yourself to the process. And every single genre is so different. And it's so easy to make something with your friends now that for me, it's about just, like, constantly creating something.
I mean, I definitely agree with that. I would say it's more investing in collaborators. Like if you find a collaborator that you really love, you know, doing the short with them, doing the feature with them, doing the TV show with them. And I think it just makes it so much sweeter when you do that bigger project with them, since you did 10 years plus of projects.
What was the question? What was the question? No, the question is, if you're not setting goals for yourself, how do you continue to grow as a filmmaker, as a DP?
Well, of course you're setting goals. You want to do the best thing you can do every time you go out to shoot. I think that personally, every time I go out, regardless of whatever the project might be, my intention is I want to turn in Oscar caliber work. That's the standard. Now, if you can achieve that, fantastic. If you can fall short of that, fantastic, on a certain level, to a certain extent. So, goal setting, striving to be better, learning, improving on your own time, spending time. This is all, it comes from the passion, hopefully, that you have inside to do what we do.
Wonderful. Well, Richard, you're not just a DP. You also direct, and do other projects and things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit. How did you make that jump? Why did you make that jump? Or how do you feel about it?
Someone asked, and I said yes. I think cinematographers are very close to the director. Obviously, we're the closest collaborator during production. I think most cinematographers have a little bit of that in them anyway, and it was just something different to explore. I actually prefer being a cinematographer.
Why?
A lot less nonsense to deal with.
I like that answer. So, coming back to soft skills a little bit, if we didn't throw the ladder out of the wheelie, how do you level up? I think the biggest questions that you have from young DPs today is, how do I get to that next level? How do I separate myself from a film school graduate who's maybe doing some music videos or some low, short films and low budget films into something that's a little bit higher? And what are some of the things that you have found that have helped you in that journey?
Well, for me, I when I started DPing, I did mostly documentary, and it was just kind of an easy way to start shooting. But I also really focused on my operating career and working with DPs that I admired. And that was a really great way to train my eye to be an excellent operator, to also just like shadow and watch what the masters are doing and to learn from them. But to also have this kind of, it's like you're a little removed from all the politics and all the kind of big things that a DP does, but as an operator, you get to see it all happen, and then you get to be on bigger sets. So for me, it was really a huge advantage to be able to operate for incredible DPs and to watch them work and to learn from them.
I would say for me, it was shooting short after short after short, and then with each short, making sure I went to the film festival run. And I felt like that was a really good process of meeting new filmmakers, as well as kind of opening my horizon of what's new, what do people like, and so forth. And then I was able to kind of build collaborators as I went to bigger and bigger festivals.
It's a strange process because in so many ways we're at the mercy of people who are willing to hire us. And we have to sit around sometimes. You can be as aggressive as possible, but it still comes down to a certain project or a certain involvement or a relationship that will present itself that is outside of yourself. And the way to bias that in your own favor is to be out at events like this and networking, developing relationships. When you do shoot, develop good relationships with the people you work with. In my case, it was a very different time during the film period, the film era, and there was a very rigid way of coming up through the system as an assistant, as an operator, and so on before you got a chance to be a cinematographer. Today, it's much more open, and there are many more opportunities. So that's a good thing. Things have evolved in that way, and that leads to a lot more opportunities for everyone. But at the same time, you have to police what you do and look to better yourself every time out, to stair step up, try to do a little bit better with the next project. Veronica just said about shooting shorts and shorts and shorts. Well, I did that a lot while I was an assistant as well. And it was always about trying just to get a little bit better than the last time. And hopefully someone would notice that. And it's something that you can't legislate or get a grip on, but you can push it in a direction that will ultimately help you as long as you just keep that fire alive inside and don't get discouraged.
I think that it's really interesting because there is no clear path, right? I've had that people ask me this question: how do I become a cinematographer? And you can go to film school, you can go be self-taught, there's a million ways. But now that I'm looking here, I think you guys all took somewhat of a, it's not a linear path, but you guys took more of a traditional path. Richard, I believe you started assisting. Christine, you started assisting and operating as well. And Veronica, you were gaffing, right? You came up through the lighting department, or were you?
I actually did both.
And assisted.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I was going to ask how you all made it here, but I think you guys are all kind of in the same. So go assist. Go learn from the people that are, above. I think there's a lesson to be had there. And that is about, learning from the people that came before you, right? You don't need to break that trail. You can stand on those shoulders and do more. Is there a specific bit of knowledge, and I'm going to put you guys on the spot right here, that you can think of from a mentor or from a DP that you worked under that really changed your understanding of the profession?
I have an answer. I've been very fortunate. I mean, I've shadowed Lance Accord and Ellen Curris and Bradford Young. And, the three of them were very different, but they all treated everyone with respect and kindness. And the biggest thing for me was they all put a camera in my hand before I asked for that. They all saw that I wanted to do this and they gave me an opportunity. And then they've asked me to operate, but then to do second unit. And then from there, that just means I can put it on my reel. And that led to just a diverse reel, but it showcased that I worked with really talented cinematographers. And that allowed me and gave me the tool to kind of just put myself out there, I guess. But the biggest thing is respect and really just looking out for the people that want to do what I want to do. That's what they did. I love all their films, and they were like, well, why don't you come on set? And that's kind of what I'm trying to fostering myself. I'm trying to, mentor and give advice to as many people as I possibly can.
So back when I decided I wanted to shoot and I decided to stop camera assisting, all of my camera assistant bosses stopped hiring me. And it was so heartbreaking. And I knew I couldn't go back. And it was such a harsh reality. But by them not allowing me to go back, I could only fall forward. And I think that kind of forced me to really dive deeper into shooting. And I think you'll always get to that point where you decide, is it really worth it? And to have these people that I admire kind of do it for me was... yeah, it was quite special.
I grew up and started in the industry in New York, and I was very fortunate once I gained admission to the union in New York to fall in with a crew that worked on all of the major features that came through town. And I would say the person who had the most influence on me, I wouldn't say as a mentor, certainly, but a mentor at a distance would have been Gordon Willis. Gordon shot the Godfather films, among many others, and I think probably one of the 2 or 3 top cinematographers of all time. And I was bright enough at the time to take advantage of what I knew was a very rare experience. I did a few movies with him, a lot of commercials, and I just looked at it as my own film school. I still have volumes at home of charts, lighting charts that I drew while I was sitting on set waiting for things to move. And they were tremendously educational. The way he conducted himself, the way he knew the laboratory, and every technical aspect of what we were doing filtered through an artist's eye. And that was absolutely irreplaceable. An incredible experience that got me out of the gate very early.
I think that is a perfect segue into my next question, which is, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to learn how to network, right? I think if I look back at my own career, networking was one of the things that I really struggled with. Being shy, here I am, right? But being shy and approaching those people that, were above me or that I thought, were more talented than me or asking for advice. So for those that are listening, those that are watching, that are trying to figure out how to break in and how to network, what is some of the advice that you guys would give?
So I think when it comes to networking, it takes 20 seconds of courage and it takes hours of leading up to it. But I think you kind of just have to go in and say hi. And it's funny. Early on, I was going to networking events by myself. And it's like when you go to a bar by yourself, you're always going to meet way more people than if you go with friends. So I think it's just kind of letting go of your ego or kind of or any insecurities and just kind of stepping up and saying hello.
Richard or Christine?
Sometimes you have to force yourself. You know, you really do. Linwood Dunn, who was a legendary special effects cinematographer, many, many, many years ago told me that. He said, sometimes you have to force yourself to get out there. And he was right. It's not easy to make cold calls. It's not easy to call people that you don't know really well. But you have to do it, or put yourself in a position to meet them. Events like this are great opportunities. And I used to haunt these events when I was a young cinematographer. And it just comes from your inner drive. It's just something that you have to pursue. It's something that you have to do because you want to, ultimately. You want to be a cinematographer. You want to shoot film. You want to shoot valuable, worthy projects. Well, there's no way around it that you have to, on some level, get out there and promote yourself. So even if you have to force yourself to do it, you have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, also being a DP, you kind of have to lead a team, right? You kind of have to have a voice. And yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't have sat up here like 13 years ago. But, you know, as you kind of get more comfortable in these kind of spaces, it's really important to kind of put yourself out there and to have a voice. You know, like your voice is uniquely your own. I think for me, it was honestly during like the 2020 resurgence of BLM where I was like, oh, no one in this room looks like me. I should probably speak up and represent who I am, just so people know that my voice exists. And when you're out there, people will find that you have a like-minded energy or voice, and they want to work with you. So the more you put yourself out there, the more people will actually know about you, in which you will then attract more collaborators that are thinking the same way.
So speaking of voice, let's talk about communication. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you come from, you know, the cinematographer, the director of photography is a department head, but he's not the only department head, or she, and they are not leading, you know, they are leading 3 other departments as well. So let's talk about some of the challenges of not just communicating upwards, but also communicating downwards to the rest of the grip, the electric, the camera department, and getting that vision to still come out on the screen.
Well, we're all in this together. You know, it's really, I've been on plenty enough sets where there has been some antagonism among departments, and I never get it. I just don't get it. We're all in this together. We're trying to make the same show, whatever it is. And you have to sometimes extend an olive branch or sometimes be decent. And you should always be decent, not sometimes. But sometimes you have to make an effort to reach out to open those lines of communication. It's the only way. It's the only way. People should never be at odds working on a grand effort like a television series or a movie. It's hard work, and you're in it for the same end. So there should not be any animosity. Communication should rule all.
I think a big thing to think about as a leader is to understand everyone's personalities in relation to the job you're doing. Because a lot of times this person might not be best for the job, even though technically they're a great person. And I think it's kind of navigating that workhorse of who's a good fit and who could be down for the cause depending on the job.
For me, in terms of just like my team, I mean, I think obviously over time, you're going to have a shorthand with the people that you've worked with over the years. So that is really simple. Obviously, when you have to work with new people, for me, it's really trying to find a way to make sure my crew feels invested, you know, make it feel like they also have ownership of the part that they're a part of. You know, I mean, I think technicians are obviously technicians and very good at what they do, but they're also creative people. And I think like with the gaffer, with the lighting designer, with the DIT, with the focus puller, with an operator, these are all people in your key grip, your dolly grip. These are all people who love to make movies. And if you involve them in the process to help you execute your vision or even help you come up with an idea of how to execute something, that is what they live for. So if you can find a way to motivate your crew and inspire them, that's the ticket to like just like harmony on set, and then communication is so much easier. If there is a difficult shot, it's like the sooner you can express that and bring it up to someone, the sooner someone can help you troubleshoot and customize a rig that will execute your shot. In terms of other departments, for me, when I get hired on a project, the first thing I do is ask for a crew list, and I am emailing other department heads like costume designers, production designers, the AD, sound department, editor, post. Like, I'm literally emailing everyone and just introducing myself instead of just being like, hey, I'm the DP. Maybe, if there's anything that comes up you want to chat about, I'm here. If anything on my end pertains to you, open line of communication. And when you do that, it just makes it so much easier for them to reach out when they do have something come up.
Sure.
You good? All right. No, that was a wonderful answer. So, have you guys ever struggled with giving up some of that control? I feel like as the budgets and the films get bigger, there's more hands involved, there's more voices. How do you handle that? How do you handle giving up? How do you maintain the integrity of what you want to put on screen while giving up some of that control and delegating some of that control to others?
No one has full control, ever. And nor has anyone ever had. It's an illusion. And every context, every opportunity, every situation is different, has its own context. And ultimately, you're there to deliver a certain level of proficiency. And you find a way within the means you're given to do that. It's not so much about control as it is about adaptation.
I mean, I think a big thing is really just kind of staying calm and kind of like pulling yourself out of the situation. And definitely for myself, it's more of weighing the pros and cons. Like, is it really worth the fight? Or could I fight for another day? And I think you kind of have to ask yourself before you start speaking out loud and kind of creating enemies.
Yeah, I think you have to choose your battles. I mean, you can't fight every fight. And also in terms of control, I mean, that's why you have your crew. Your crew is there to help take some of that weight off your shoulders. And the more you trust them, the better they will perform for you, But yeah, you really got to like choose your battles. And ultimately it's what is the thing that's going to serve the story? What is the thing that is on the paper that you are trying to portray? And how can you do that visually, efficiently, and with the resources that you have and the time that you don't ever have?
It gets better, right? The budget get bigger. You're going to have all the time in the world. No, that's not.
Just different problems.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think that's something that I definitely did not realize early on. And this idea that as you move up, then you're not going to have to deal with the same problems. But it seems like they're the same problems. They're just different scopes of the same kind of problems. It's always time. It's always communication. Let's talk about it.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is you still never have enough money. Because now you're expected to do so much more, and you still don't have money. And you're expected to do, it's never ending.
Time only goes faster. Time, I mean, what year is it? I have no idea. But like, time seems to get faster as I get older. And the page count seems to get higher.
The only thing shorter than a 2-day weekend is a 3-day weekend. If you know what I mean. There's never enough time. There's never enough money. There's never enough crew and equipment. You face the same challenges regardless of whatever you're dealing with. Again, it's about the context, and that you find a way to work within the limitations you're presented with. And that from that comes sometimes the most incredible work. With total freedom and bottomless supplies of time and money and people, everything would be a mess. There would be nothing. The good stuff comes out of having limitations, whatever they might be.
I would also say over time, your problem-solving skills get better. So there are kind of maybe tricks that you've figured out for yourself where you're like, oh, if I put this on a crane, I can get all these shots faster. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but then you got to get a crane. But then I'm like, but then I could give you 10 shots. So let's see what's more valuable, you know? And I guess that's the game, is trying to play your cards right.
Which brings us to our next question. You guys are segueing me so well. This is fantastic. Negotiations, right? That's another skill that you don't really get taught in film school. You have to be a negotiator when you're a cinematographer. You're negotiating budgets, you're negotiating crew sizes, you're negotiating time with your ADs. So how have you grown as a negotiator? Negotiating rates as well, you know?
I mean, I would say when it comes to negotiation, you're kind of weighing the pros and cons of everything. It's usually, I'm doing this for money, I'm doing this for a collaborator, or I really love the story. And I think you're kind of weighing those three, and you usually get two. So it's a triangle. I know, I messed up my shapes.
No, it's okay. No, you're right, though. You can't get all of it.
No. And I think when you're negotiating, you're kind of figuring out which one is more important.
I also think negotiating, in terms of like, you know, it's also relationships you've built over the years, right? So with crew, you know, if I have a short film where I know the rate's really bad, I'm like, hey, I have a commercial next week. Can you help me with this? There's a better rate for this, you know? And then with honestly, it's like vendors are really important. Your relationship with vendors and being like, hey, I have this project. I don't really have a lot of money to rent stuff, but could you donate a light or two, or could you donate a camera package? I mean, these are things that you kind of build over time that really is like, comes back to community, you know? So negotiating, you're always negotiating, even when it's like millions of dollars. You just need more. But how are you actually, like, what exactly are you exchanging for, right? Like,
How are you justifying?
How are you?
I think in any negotiation, it helps to keep the big picture in mind and where you fit into the big picture. Know where you're going to be willing to compromise and where you need to take an intractable stand. And understand that, once again, you're not making your own movie. It's not all about you as much as we would all like it to be. It's just not. And where things fit in the big picture, I think, are very often people tend to forget that. Whatever they're negotiating, whoever they're negotiating with in terms of doing the work.
No, yeah. See, I don't have a smooth segue this time. Now you guys spoiled me, and so I wasn't ready to segue to the next one. No, the next question is very simple, and that is, let's talk about the other aspect that I think a lot of people hate, and that is, as a cinematographer, as a freelancer, you're always also marketing and selling yourself constantly. So, you know, how do you handle that? That is the wrong word choice, but you know, you're always marketing your brand, selling your brand. How about that?
I mean, you invited us to this panel, so, you know, I mean, you're really selling us, which is very nice. I mean, you know, it's relationships, right? Like relationships with your vendors and just like, I mean, it really, I mean, it's my first answer is community. I mean, are you really selling yourself, or are you just here to like help each other out? And are we here actually just to like give information to everyone here about the things that we've gone through so that they either don't have to go through it like we did, or that they're taking our advice and growing from that? I mean, I think we're all here because we care about what this industry is and the family of filmmakers in this room.
Bribes and kickbacks go a long way. It's the same old story. You're out there and you're trying to build relationships and expand on the others and make new ones. And, you know, they're the mundane things, the websites, the screenings, the things that agents do. It's just being engaged in the community and trying to expand the web of people you know who might be able to help you or can bring you more employment.
I mean, I guess to follow up with both comments, it's funny how small the world becomes the longer you're doing it, the longer you're networking, the longer you're shooting. And I think that level of community, it really expands your level of what kind of cinematographer do I want to be? What kind of leader do I want to be? And it just kind of elevates.
I think growth is very organic. You know, it's hard to just like, I mean, sure, you can walk around and pass your card out. I don't know. I mean, yes, you do that. People do that. But I mean, the organic process of networking and community and, you know, I get jobs because someone saw my work, or, oh, you worked with my friend and I have a script that I think you might like. You know, I think it's like the more you put your personality out there in terms of like your Instagram or, you know, whatever, social media, it's like the more people know about you. So selling, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's like an organic process of just like sharing, you know.
Right? Yeah, no, that was a really good. You guys are throwing me off because the answers are so good that, you know, I start thinking about them. But, you know, for the people that out there listening, and we're getting ready to wrap this up a little bit, but what is the advice that you would give to yourself as you were starting out as a DP? Like, what are the things they really need to focus on? I think we've touched on it, but I'd like to hear it in your.
I mean, I know this is about film school and going to film school. I went to film school. It sucked. Honestly, it was awful. I didn't think I would be a DP. I graduated, and I was like, I will never be a DP, honestly. And it was my friends and my community that was like, wait, you wanted to be a DP. Why don't you try that? And I had to push myself to do it. It was, yeah, it's like, you know, your peers being like, no, you have to do this for you. You know, I had to force myself to do it. And now I'm like, oh, wow, I guess I'm a DP. You know what I mean? It's just, it's really scary. And if you don't force yourself to try, you'll never know. So you just have to do it, and it's going to suck. But then you'll get on the other side. It'll be great. And then you'll sit up here with you know, your friends, and you talk about your life and how hard it was.
Or is it?
What advice would you give yourself when you were starting out?
Yeah. I think I would tell myself that it's not a race, and you should run your own race. You're not in competition with anyone except yourself. And what anyone else is doing, however they're progressing in their career or not, you have to do what you have to do to make yourself complete, make yourself happy, progress, whatever you might call it. So put the blinders on, put your head down, go to work, and don't worry about anything else. Put one foot in front of the other. Try to better yourself every time out, and everything will turn out just fine. You can't miss. It takes a great degree of tenacity and resilience. And if you keep that in mind, I think you'd be okay. I think I would have been, apparently I turned out okay.
I mean, I would say for myself would be asking for help, because a lot of times when you're starting out, you're kind of insecure of, hey, I need this gear, or it's like, I need my friends to come out. And I think you kind of have to overcome that in a way and really ask what you want. And that's the only way you're going to get it.
Yeah, I think that sums up the themes that we've been talking about here, which is just, you know, putting yourself out there, letting go of the ego, you know, asking for help, being authentic, and being a good leader. So thank you guys. I think we're going to open it up to the audience for some questions, and then we'll see if anyone wants to talk. Does anyone have any questions for our great panelists here? You have. Don't be shy now. Oh, here we go. No, Tim was just being... So Tim wants to know, why would you waste your time going to AFI?
I feel like I was put on the spot.
I did not go there. I didn't. I kind of wish I did, but I didn't.
I mean, I think, I know this is a panel about what you didn't learn from school, but I think what I learned from AFI was that I could really grow with a group of cinematographers, even some cinematographers who are here now. And I think having that level of trust and being in a place for 2 years and just focusing on cinematography is a great way to kind of jumpstart your career.
All right, does anyone have any actual questions, or is just Tim heckling the panelists here? Oh, we have one question here coming up front. Go ahead, say it out loud, and I'll repeat the question.
What was the process of finding the voice of Cine?
How did you find your voice as a cinematographer? What was that process like? And what advice would you give to someone as they're trying to find that voice? Buy Aputure lights.
I mean, I think it's a lot of trying and failing. And I think a lot of times when you first start out, you start shooting things. You're like, I love Bradford Young. I'm going to just shoot like that. And then you realize you kind of want to customize it for each story. And I think that's kind of how you slowly develop your taste. It's a lot of failing and kind of starting over. And it's a very imperfect nature to it.
I think don't be afraid to fail, right? You know, figure out what you like and do it as much as you can and get better at it. So, anyone want to add something? Or
Well, in the beginning, everybody imitates someone. That's how we all do it. And eventually you work out of that and start to develop your own taste. And that's what all of this is about. Anybody could learn the technology in an hour. It's not complicated at all. But beyond that, what separates everyone is the application of their taste. How do you use the technology to apply your own personal feeling about things, about what you're shooting? And that's really the essence of what we do. So it takes time and effort and a lot of hit and miss and a lot of extracurricular learning, watching other people's work, there's so many ways to learn today and so many outlets to watch great work presented in beautiful ways. And you see what you like and you don't. And it's a weeding out process. It takes time. Doesn't come quickly.
I think I'm still finding my voice. I mean, I feel like with each project, it's different, right? Like, I actually don't want all my stuff to feel like the same thing. I think everything should be its own thing. And, you're working with different collaborators. I mean, you can still work with the same technical team, have a different director, have a different script. It's different. Same thing, different director, different. Same thing, different script, different. It's all different. Different actress, different. It's all different for me. But I think it's in the style in which you execute. Maybe that's the voice you're speaking of. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like they all said, it's a lot of just like trying to figure out what works for you and how that's working for the whole team.
not me. I had a signature look. The problem is that it was bad. All right. Do we have any other questions? Casey, go ahead.
Problem is this bus and if you other do it again next year.
Did you focus more on lighting or did you focus more on composition at first? And if you had to do it all again, would you focus on one over the other?
They're inextricably bound. Really. Then you can't concentrate too much on one or the other because the other will suffer. Do you have a preference? Who knows? I really don't. I see them as one feeds the other.
I think one of my favorite sayings from a mentor of mine was, you can't light air. So you have to see what you're lighting before you light it sometimes. The link is there always.
Good production design helps.
It's all linked together. You can only make a white wall look so different. All right, any more questions, guys? Now we're going to wrap it up here. Anyone? We'll give it a second here. All right, so let's talk, as we give someone a second here, let's just ask, favorite piece of gear that you personally bring onto set? You know, it could be shoes, it could be a pen, whatever it is that you always bring that you feel like is really nice.
You forget, right?
I think Richard has.
I have a little personalized viewing glass, a piece of
A gaffer's glass.
welder's glass, a gaffer's glass that has someone made it for me. It's in a brass housing. It's been with me forever, and it's got my name on it. I like it. Every time I look at it, I go, "That's so cool."
That's awesome.
I mean, I think I would say recently my headsets, because like when I'm in a small job, there's no walkies. And then when I'm on a big job, we're communicating 100 things. And I think this job is all about communication. So I think finding ways to simplify communication is key.
Oh my God, I love headsets too. Man, that's a good answer. Well, I mean,
Do you guys have the custom ones with like the surveillance headsets with the?
I just have the Hollywood ones. Yeah, those are great. Yeah, shout out. I always have a little camera in my pocket because I always just want to like take photos of my friends and like BTS and stuff. And I always feel like time, like I said, time goes by so fast. But like I'm always like, oh, I want to remember the shoot day, and then I try to take as many photos as I can. So that's the thing I love the most, just taking photos of like BTS stuff.
All right, guys, that was a fantastic answer. If no one has any more questions, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks so much to our panelists. Guys, give it a round, please. Give us a look.